Hi, you're listening to my podcast, Colin in Conversation. I'm Colin. I'm a comedian, writer and broadcaster, and over the next few pods, we're going to be talking to the famous, the infamous and the fabulous. You're going to love this content, folks. You're going to want to comment, review, like, and anything less than a 5-star review, I'll consider a hate crime. But enough of me, here's some more of me, with a cool guest. I am here with the legendary Mick Brown. All will become apparent during the conversation. Mick, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And it'd be nice at this time of year to get some sunshine back. All we want is the summertime sounds.
Oh, mate.
Don't you think music sounds much better when it's sunny as well?
I think everything's much better when it's sunny, isn't it?
It is.
Like everything's much better. So, dating, family,
Everything.
We
want the sun.
Better. I am a bit in awe today because I'm sat in the Radio Jackie studios and I'm here with the legendary Mick Brown, legend of radio, TV, fundraising, all sorts of stuff. How are you doing, Mick? You all right? Very
good, thanks. And there is nothing like a radio. The great thing about radio, and I think we always know that, is that radio should be it's the mind. It's when you listen to someone, you kind of envisage where they are, what they're doing. But it is all about what comes out of in your headphones or in the speakers, and it's those wonderful pictures that people who are good at what they do in radio can actually paint. I'm talking about possibly sports presenters and that. They can, if you're watching you're listening to a football game on the radio, I think it's far more exciting than listening or watching a game on telly. For me, the greatest football commentator on radio was Jonathan Pearce, who I had the great pleasure of working with at Capital Gold. So radio is when it's done properly, it's absolutely amazing.
I do 99% of my football on the radio. Most of it. Because I live on a boat, man, so I don't have a satellite dish on the boat, do you?
No, there is something magical about listening to football or any commentary, and it gets the goosebumps when you're on.
Yeah. Who's your team, Mick?
Football team?
Yeah, who's your football team?
Millwall.
Millwall.
Yep.
Ah, that's all right. Are you have a good season or bad season?
We always have a season where 1 minute we're kind of, we want another 2 wins and we'll be in the playoffs, and now we're looking at another 2 wins so we don't get drawn into a relegation fight. It's where it always happens. We normally end up second half of the season looking good, and then we'll just miss out on the playoffs. But that's what it's like following Mill. You support your team. It's really kind of, I think as long as we stay in the Championship, it's great.
Yeah. That's all right. So for people out, in London, it's fair to say, Mick, that you occupied the Capital Radio chair in its heyday, in the heyday of commercial radio. Before it was, let's use a nice tactful word, ruined.
Yeah, that's one word. It was a mighty radio station. There was no two ways about it. And the great thing about it, that with all the kind of the lineup that it has, it was a really great team. It was kind of, if you think at the moment, it was like the Liverpool at the moment of radio. But the great thing is that people always used to say, I listen to Capital. They didn't used to say, I listen to you, I listen to Tarrant, I listen to Pat, I listen to Jay Jensen. It was, I love listening to Capital.
Yeah, because when we think about Capital now, there's younger listeners that won't realise that actually Capital was a London-centric station. It was only in London, and you were pulling listening figures that Nationals would have been proud of.
It was very, very powerful. In fact, it was most likely, and I think if you talk to most people, it was most likely at that time one of, if not the best radio stations in the world for what it was. And I still think it's an absolute scandal that London hasn't got its own Capital FM station. We do our bit. See, the great thing about Radio Jackie is that Radio Jackie is obviously not the grand scale of Capital. If you go into Capital, all you see around the studios are like tellies with pictures of what they are on. We know who we are. We're Radio Jackie. We've got a big Radio Jackie sign up, but we're not like kind of. We are what we are. But as always, it's what goes out on the radio that matters. And we are, I would still say, as near as you're going to get to how Capital was back in the day.
And I don't live in the area, and it would be a nice place to work, I think.
It is. It's great. It's the guy who owns it, Tony Collis. He owns the radio station. It's not owned by a company or whatever. And he was the man who, back in the day, in the early days when it was one of the original pirate radio stations, there's pictures of him pushing a pram with a little transmitter on to stick it in some bush in Carshalton Park, and then round the corner was a bloke with a ladder sticking a cassette player up a tree, and that was Radio Jackie.
Yeah, and I'd have loved to. I think I was born 25 years too late. I'd have loved to have done that.
Yeah.
Sort of when they were rock stars, weren't they? They were as big as the artists they were playing.
It was, and also don't forget back in the kind of the Capital heyday. I mean, we're talking about it as if it was like back before the war. It's not that long ago, but back in the day, you were employed on the radio for that you were kind of hopefully good at doing the presenting, but you had a knowledge of music, and you actually broke records. You would bring a song in and champion that song, and it went on to be a big hit. That doesn't happen anymore. There's one bloke sitting up in the ivory tower at Capitol who will program every radio station, which is why, sadly, not sadly, it's how it is. But for me, Capitol's a bit like McDonald's now. You get the Capitol in London, and now it is totally national. There's no local at all, and that's what you're going to get.
I mean, just to make some of those radio nerds out there feel moist, just give us a rundown of that daytime lineup.
Well, I mean, for example, you had overnights. I mean, overnights was London is one of the great jingles was London is capital city. It is. London never stops. It is. So back in the day, people would say, oh, he's only doing the graveyard shift, which always used to make me laugh because I'd be thinking I would have done any shift to be on Capital. Yeah,
well, my producer Neil did nighttime stuff, and he's very proud of that.
And overnight, I've always said that people who listen to radio between, say, 12 midnight and 6 in the morning listen to the radio more than they will listen to my drive time show. I don't mean numbers, but I mean the people who are listening will listen because you're their mate through the night. So you had this wonderful overnight kind of roster of DJ, including Neil Long, who came into Capital, and then you had what they started the early breakfast show, and that was presented by Richard Allenson, who went on to be to Radio 2. But then, of course, you had Chris Tarrant, the master of breakfast. Then you had Pat Sharp, because Pat and I started off as the Pat and Mick shows in the evening, and then we kind of would move down to the daytime. I moved down first to lunchtime, then Pat was moved to 10, and then Dave Jensen was on the drive time. Then it was followed by Neil Fox, and then followed by Martin Collins. It was like it was a great lineup. I mean,
if you had to equate it to transfer fees, there's a few $100 million worth of
it was
talent
transfer
there,
deadline day, big lineup that would have been. Yeah,
you know what I mean. But and then you did interesting stuff. Like I know Russ Kane did the Eye in the Sky, and you were the first guys in Britain to do that, weren't you?
Yeah, we had the plane. A lot of people thought it was a sound effect machine. It was quite funny. They said, "What have you got like in the background?" And Russ sitting in another studio. And no, he went up there, and we all had our turn to go up there, and it was an unbelievable. I mean, London is an incredible place. I mean, the trouble is when you live there or live near it, you take it for granted.
Yeah.
But going up and seeing the pure size of the place and how wonderful it is.
It's just so British, you know what I mean? Like the Americans had the idea and they do it with a chopper.
Yeah.
And then we think, we think, we'll do it with a plane.
Well, I think in the early days, the very early days, we had the head of news at Capital was a guy called Brian Wolfe.
Yeah.
And he used to go out on his motorbike. So that's how it started. So we would go and find the traffic jams.
Yeah.
And so he would be there on his bike, and every sort of like 20 minutes we'd say, well, let's join Brian Wolfe on the Radio Capital bike, whatever, and he'd report from the Elephant and Castle, or he'd report from Hanger Lane or something. Yeah.
And you talked about the Pat and Mick show, but what people might not know is that you had a little bit of a foray into the pop world.
We had it was an amazing time. We started the Pat and Mick show. Right, the story goes right. Capital was going. I started Capital in 1978. I was an 18-year-old copywriter. I was writing promos for the shows, I then one day the program controller said, "You like football, Mick, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, can you do the afternoon show on Saturday because Nicky Horn's not well?" And I said, "What do you mean do it?" He said, "Like do it." And I I said, and I just said, yeah. I hadn't ever done that. I'd never done hospital radio, never even did a mobile
baptism
DJ.
Of fire.
And so I went on Saturday afternoon, and I was in my element because it basically was a show of a couple of songs. Oh, it's been a go at Arsenal. Boom, couple of songs. Oh, Chelsea have scored. It was that.
Yeah.
And on the Monday morning, he said, look, you sound like you enjoyed that. What Nicky's kind of does his show in the week, and I'm sure he wants Saturday off. Do you want to do it? And so I was producing in the week. I was producing the Mike Smith, Graham Dean breakfast show, Alan Freeman's Pick of the Pops, all that kind of stuff. And I did the Saturday afternoon show. And then that's when it all turned round because a guy called Richard Park arrived from up in Glasgow. And he totally transformed the place. The capital was in danger of becoming a bit, shall we say, blue rinse. It was becoming a bit old with the presenting and the style. So he said to us, I'm going to take you off Saturday afternoon, which I thought a bit harsh. He said, but I'm going to put you on 6 days a week. I want you on the radio, but I want you to do this show that we do up in Glasgow. Two guys, and I want you to just go for the kids. Just go out, and it's got to be university age kids, school, teenagers, that. Forget what they do for the rest of the day. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, you come on and do that. And so you produce that, but you've got to go and find someone to do it with you. And that's where we started the look for the and Mick, the person who was going to be with me. So we went through quite a few good ones, and I said to Richard, quite a few came in. I said not right for us, but I would think Jackie Bramble. Remember Jackie Brambles? Jackie Brambles came in, said really great, but not for this. But he took her on. There was another couple of presenters who again weren't quite right, but then they all found their way on the radio, and then the Pat Mick show started. And on the day we started, it was the start of Neighbours.
Okay. So
Neighbours back when it started was it was on a bizarre time. It was on at 9:25 and 1:25. And that was how it was. It was that's how it worked. So over night time we used to get in, and the first thing I started to say to Pat was, "Have you seen Neighbours?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Have you seen Kylie Minogue?" I said, "Everyone's going to fancy Kylie Minogue." And I said, "Jason Donovan, the girls are going to go mad." So it became a bit of a, "Have you seen Neighbours today?" And that was it. And then about a month in or 2 months in, Pete Walkman rings up and says, "Oi, kid, you like Neighbours? Yeah. You like Kylie Minogue? Yeah." He said, "Do you want her to come in on the show?" I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, we're going to do a song with her." And I said, "Oh, wow." I said, "I know she's done a few songs in America, in Australia. She had a hit with The Locomotion." She said, but no, we're going to bring her over. We're going to start making songs." And so anyway, she came in, and we had that could be Kylie ringing now. And she came in, and she said, "I brought my new song in, and do you want to hear it?" And we said, "Yeah, of course we do." And we played it, and it was called "I Should Be So Lucky." And boom, off they went. And so we then started basically anything that Stock Aitken Warnerman produced, we would play, because we became synonymous with that sound. The sound. Yeah. Their catchphrase was the sound of a bright young Britain. Ours was the sound of a bright young London. Yeah. And then, hey, Jason's doing a song. Do you want him in? Well, of course we do. And so we started bringing all these guests in, and we were getting like hundreds and thousands of kids out. It was like Beatlemania out the front of the Rocking Tower. Yeah. So that's how the Pat and Mick shows started. And then I said to Pete Waterman laughingly one day, "Pete, it's about time me and Pat made a record." And he went, "Ha ha ha, yeah," and put the phone down type thing. Great. Anyway, about a week later, he said, "Hey kid, you and Pat, get your ass down to the Hit Factory on Wednesday." "What for?" "We're making a record." "Are we?" "Yeah, so we're going to make a record. So come in." And he said, "We've chosen 10-year anniversary of Let's All Chant, Zager and the Michael Zager band." And we recorded it, and it was quite good, and it reached number 11 in the chart. Yeah, and it was the start, and we made 6 in the end. And we got a greatest hits album, and it's the same old. This has been told many times, but they raised over £500,000, which is great.
Well, that was something else that I had to talk about. You've devoted big chunks of your working life, haven't you, to making money for charity.
It was hardly working. It was great fun for us, because for 11 months of the year we played them. For 1 month of the year we became sort of like a pop group.
Did you get out and tour then?
We did loads. We did loads. We did all the. Do you remember the Hitman and Her show that Pete Walkman did?
My understanding is you're both quite family orientated guys. You and Pat. So I imagine the rock star thing, and I'm trying to imagine it.
But don't forget, it was fun, because we could blatantly play the arse off those songs because we weren't making any money out of them. Yeah, it was all going to charity, so we could play it and play it and play it, and all the other shows, played it, because it all went to Help a London Child, which was our station charity.
Yeah.
And so and then of course we went on we were then on the same kind of rota as all the Stockacre Waterman hits. So we'd do all the pop shows. You know, we did Top of the Pops 3 times, which was great. It was our only one play a year on Radio 1. That was it, because they wouldn't touch us like a barge pole.
Oh, was there a bit of... Really?
No, there was... They
were playing Stockacre and Waterman songs, though, weren't they?
They most certainly were, but they wouldn't play us.
Wow.
They never did. And it was always great when the poor old Radio 1 DJ had to introduce us, because you could see he didn't want to. It was like, hey, welcome to Top of the Pops, let's kick off. About Mick.
So you enjoyed it. It wasn't kind of
unbelievable.
Traumatic experience.
It wasn't going to make me a millionaire doing it. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was just great. So we just jumped in and we played along with it.
So did you have kids then?
Yeah.
So what did they think to Dad on Top of the Pops?
Well, I mean, I think they were a bit small at that time.
Yeah.
But then, you know, down the line, my daughter Natalie was a bit older, and of course then she was coming along to. We used to do a thing called The Best Disco in Town, which Greg Edwards did on a Friday night. It was for like the over 18s, and I was at Capital for a while, and I said we really should start doing something for the younger mob, like, and let's call it the Junior Best Disco. Oh, that's a good idea. And we did, and we started these shows off, and we had it was like every person who's in the chart would come and do the Sunday afternoon show, and we'd do it live. Me and Pat would do it live from wherever, the Hammersmith Apollo, the Hammersmith Palais.
Yeah.
Then we toured it around. Then eventually in the summer it became very sponsorable. So we had Coca-Cola sponsor it, we had Pepsi sponsor it, and Golden Wonder. Everyone, for 6 weeks we'd take it on the road all around London.
Yeah, and you've worked with some big stars as well in your time, haven't you? And interviewed some massive stars.
Well, the great thing about Capital is that everyone wanted to be on it because it was what it was.
Yeah.
So there was no trouble getting. It wasn't just, I'm not doing a London station. We want to do the national, because we were actually most likely more powerful than Radio 1 at the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's as I said, when I looked at the figures, and you talked about the sort of million numbers that were thrown around.
Yeah.
Big State 1, 2, 3 and 4 they were numbers that they would have...
No, it was a great time.
Clambered for,
and it was a wonderful. It was a place where you'd get into work. Like if I was on, say, at 8 o'clock at night, I would be in there by 3 in the afternoon just to be there.
Yeah,
because you were looking at people and they're like, "There's Roger Scott."
Well, they talk about you as being Mr. Showbiz, don't they?
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know. I just loved the whole thing about it. It was great to be part of that, and I think, got to be honest, it's great to still be doing it.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously you left Capital. Was that before the massive raft of changes?
It was the reason. I mean, when I was doing, I could see the writing was on the wall. This bloke called Ralph Bernard came in, who was part of, I think, great. There was 2 radio stations that got together, Capital and then GCAP it was called, and the guy came in who was MD in over the both one. The Capital one decided to leave. He took a huge payoff. They left this bloke in charge. You could see what was going to happen. It was anyone who's big earners, let's biff them because we can get someone in a lot cheaper. And that's what. And you could see that going on. I then went to Capital Gold. It was great. The breakfast show that I did then was like seriously, overachieving, if you like, because of the music. And I still don't understand why Capital Gold isn't a London station now. It will clean up if it were. They talk about Boom and all those stations, but Capital Gold is such a great name.
Yeah.
Anyway, they've kind of they've kept it on because I suppose it'll upset people. But yeah, and you could see the writing was on the wall. So I was doing the breakfast show in London, and then all of a sudden it was going to get swallowed up because there were so many breakfast shows around the network. And I think what they suddenly said was, we're paying this bloke quite a few quid here. Let's get rid of him, and we can get Harry Bloggs in to do the show, and he can do it on all of them for the 10th of the price. Yeah. And that's how it happened. And so I left, and that was it. And within a couple of weeks or months, I had a call from Radio Jackie, and I'm thinking, listen, my feeling was I was just going to not do anything for a while, because I've worked on breakfast, but Capital and right the way through for 20, nearly 30 years, if you like. And all of us, you don't notice it when you're doing it, But as soon as you stop, you think, God, I've really, really enjoyed that line today. It'd be nice to do that.
I mean, because if you're on air at 7, what you got to be in the studio by 5, haven't you?
Well, for radio, I'd be in by 6.
Radio, anyway.
I'd be in by 6. You need to be there. You can't just rock up. You can't treat a breakfast show like you turn up as if you're half a kip. You can't do that.
I did one breakfast show. I only ever did one. It was a Saturday morning, and it was on an FM trial. I was working with a station in Nottingham, and they were doing. You have to do a trial to get your FM licence, don't you?
Yeah.
And I did one Saturday morning, and it was horrible. I'm definitely a late night guy.
No, I love breakfast. The breakfast show on radio is the great show.
Yeah.
I know they always traditionally say it's the biggest show. It is like one of. I still think that the biggest show on radio is Sunday morning. Right. Mid-morning when, no one's really got to go to work.
Everyone's at home.
And everyone's at home. You get the radio, and that's why, the Radio 2 love songs used to clean up with...
or your local radio always had dedications.
Or a top 10 and those kind of things. It is great. And I wish that radio would go back to those days of reasons to listen. Like Pat used the top 10 at 10. Yeah. It was everyone loves a chart.
Yeah.
And if your Pat come on at 10 o'clock, hey, today's top 10 at 10 is today in 1994. Oh, my God. Yeah. And what's going to be number one? It was that.
Yeah.
And I used to do a thing called 3 from 1 at 2. 3 songs, 1 artist at 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it was just people would, can't wait for it. Who is it today? Madonna? Oh, great. Love Madonna.
Yeah. Because apart from trawling through your history, which I'm sure you talk about a lot, one of the large reasons I wanted to talk to you was because I'm a bit of a radio nerd, and the state of local radio is because Capital was a local radio station, let's not forget, originally. Huh. And the local radio, like, I live in the East Midlands, and I listen to Radio Nottingham in the day. But my show's going to Derby, it's going to Leicester, it's going to Lincoln. So we're all getting the same show.
Yeah.
So there's none of that, Mrs. Tompkins at such and such a drive.
No, it's not. See, right, this is the great thing about the show I do on radio, because I do a breakfast show on another a kind of international internet station called Deluxe.
Okay.
That is me. I produce it. It's great. I absolutely love it. It is like being back to the old days of producing, where you think, well, I can do that. Well, that'll sound nice there. We come out there, I'll do 2 from the Beatles every morning, Fab 4x2, and it's built and it's crafted literally with love. That show is I just love it. The Jackie show is the shows are kind of pre-built, but we have our input, which is great, which is unlike the Capitals of this world. You don't touch it, that's it, play it, and just shut up. Yeah. But there is something magical about kind of... I hate the word... I'm not a great fan of the word local, because it makes it sound small.
Small.
But if you want to say that, then Radio Jackie is a local radio station, but it is local in London, specific to South West London, Surrey. It is we broadcast to the most affluent people in the country. We go to Chelsea, Westminster, Ascot, Guildford. It's that area. It's wonderful. And so... There is nothing quite like, and which is what our governor here wants. He wants a personality, he wants locality, and he wants the music to be, as he calls it, the river through the middle. So the music plays, and the more you hear, we have travel news, we'll be talking about the A3, we'll talk about the M25, we'll talk about Surbiton High Street. Oh, Ashford, there's been a, fire in the... So you get all that. And you also will get the locality of the adverts. Very rarely do you hear on Jackie an advert for, say, McDonald's or for Esso or something, unless the rule is McDonald's want to do an advert to say McDonald's Surbiton, McDonald's in... So it means that people who advertise are genuinely advertising to this area, and they can pinpoint, we've got a new shop opening in Epsom, who are we going to go to? Hart? Well, we're going to get... 3/4 of the audience don't give a monkeys. But, Jackie, there they go. We'll do it there. And that's how it works.
Yeah. And it's a nice little station, isn't it?
It's fabulous. It's actually quite large. If you haven't been in here, we've got we've got the main studio, this studio here, which is normally a news studio, and where we can do recorded bits. It's a huge kind of what we used to call lovingly at Capital Plate the playpen, where all the DJs used to sit, and that's out there, and it is great, and it's right by now I've always termed it the London's new Rocking Tower, because we came from Capital's Rocking Tower at Euston, and we got our Rocking Tower right there, which is the Tolworth Tower.
Yeah, and I didn't know, but I kind of assumed that the Capital was at the top of the tower as well.
We were at the bottom.
I assumed that. I don't know why.
The MI5 were at the top.
Really?
Of the Capital Tower, yeah.
Nice. So they didn't want you lot up there, did they?
No.
They didn't want you lot up there. So the final thing I'm going to ask you about is when you got into radio, right? What was it that did it for you? Did you always have a fascination with radio, or did you fall into it?
I've always loved me. I've got an older brother and sister. I was very, very lucky that when I was 5 and 6, in my house we were the Beatles, Tamla Motown. That was it. That's how it started. Then, weirdly, it was planned. It must have been planned somewhere, because at my first junior school, Childerwick Road Junior School in New Cross, in the final year, Mr. What's his name? Millard, I think his name was. Really lovely teacher of ours. He said, "We're going to start a radio station, and we're going to call it Radio Childerwick. And what we're going to do is every day I'm going to be in one of the classrooms with some tapes. So anyone who wants to come along and do a little bit, sing, do a poem, tell a joke, whatever. And then what I'll do is I'll put it all together and we'll put it on throughout the speakers in the school in the last hour of the week." And he said, "Mick Brown, you're going to present it for us." I said, "Oh, great."
And Gobby child? Was it like, did he think, were you one of the kids that had a big mouth, and he thought, that'll be perfect for Brown?
He's got a bit of front, so let's get him on there. And the theme song, I'll never forget, was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That was the theme. And I used to say, "Hey, Radio Childerwick, welcome along. First up today is Yvette from 4C, who's going to sing a song she's wrote." And then they do it, and it went out. So I was off and running.
So you were groomed from an early age.
Off and running.
And destined for a life in radio.
And then, as I say, I joined Selfridges in London as my first job when I left school as a junior in the advertising department. But the 4 or 5 weeks before that, my cousin, luckily, Lily, who was the head of staff, as they were called in those days, HR at Selfridges, said, we were a family party. She said, "Michael," all my family called me Michael. I know that's my name, but most people call me Mick. "Michael, what are you going to do when you leave school?" I said, "I don't know." She said, "Would you like to work at Selfridges?" I said, "Well, it sounds great. What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I do like. I love window display. When you're Christmas, you go." So she said, "Leave it with me." Comes back and says, "Unfortunately, there's no spaces there, but there's a junior role they want in the advertising department, which is they're going to make adverts for Selfridges and Miss Selfridge." And I joined. That's how I worked in there. And one day, literally, the advertising manager, Bill James, stuck his head out the door and said, "Who listens to Capital Radio?" I said, "I do." He said, "Right, now bear in mind I'm 17. You're going to be our radio producer." I said, "Oh, that's amazing. What does that mean?" He said, "We're going to make radio ads," because Selfridges weren't interested in radio ads.
Yeah.
They didn't give a monkeys. They used the London Evening Standard or the Telegraph for mail order, and at the time Capital was dying on its arse.
Yeah.
So I think they were giving advertising away.
Yeah.
Please come on. If you come on, you can have it for nothing. Then hopefully Harrods will come on. Hopefully John Lewis will come on.
Yeah.
So the first advert I had to make was wildly rock and roll. It was for an Electrolux fridge. And so I had to go down and say to the bloke, "Right, well, what are we doing? What's the deal then?" He said, "Oh, we're going to be, 20 quid off." I said, "All right." So we had to make this Electrolux fridge ad sound like amazing. So anyway, so we made it. I went to Capital. Gal Smith, the person who was in charge there, with Rob Cottingham in the production team. And we made this ad and we got a voiceover in. He did it and we did it. Took it back and Bill Jones, "Oh, yes, that's good. Yeah, great." Anyway, so forget that. The Monday after the weekend that ad went out, he called me and he went, "I think we need to do some more ads." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because we sold out of Electrolux fridges." And that's how the kind. And then about 2 years later, cut long story short, Gal Smith rings me up. "Mick, would you like to come to Capital to be a copywriter?" And that's what I did. And then when I was there, I just kind of muscled my way into becoming a producer and then bumbled my way on here.
That was it.
That's how it was.
And then I've had a glittering career ever since.
Sad thing about it, there will never be a little Mick now at any radio station.
And I mean, I've done probably 15 years in radio, on internet stations and local stations, and it's very much a closed shop now. Whereas you guys some of you fell into it.
Well, the thing about it is, let's go back to the football kind of ism, is that Capital Radio, if we're looking at Capital now, say, if they're looking, where's little Mick when you need him? Well, we don't need little Mick now, because if we want someone who's going to be good at that, we know there's someone who works in our Liverpool area. Oh, we'll have him. So he comes down. Oh, someone in South Wales is doing really good. So it's a bit like the academy. Yeah. And they'll just put one of their team on. There's no little Mick anymore.
No, and that's a shame.
It is a shame. Of course,
that is a real shame. You've done a lot of interviews in your time. If I can just ask you whether you've got a favourite.
Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney?
Absolutely, Paul McCartney. Absolutely.
And when was that? I mean, where?
It was at in the new building in Leicester Square. I think he had a new album coming out. I think it was Give My Regards to Broad Street at the time, and the record label insisted that it wasn't going to be a Beatles interview. It was Paul McCartney. So I said, no Beatles. Okay, no Beatles. Great. So in comes Paul. Unbelievable. I'm kind of like starry-eyed. It was really great.
Yeah, wow.
But a great story about that is I'm sitting there thinking, what am I going to... When I go in and say hello to him, what I don't want to do is look like the idiot. Paul, I'm such a big fan. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And so as I opened the door, Paul's wearing this wonderful check shirt. He went, hey, you! Yes. He went, you saved my nights for many a night back in the day. Why? When you were doing that show, Night Network, we just had our little daughter, and I was doing the overnight feed, and we used to watch Night Network every week. And I thought, I'm in now. I'm in.
Famous fan.
And so we start the interview. No Beatles, no Beatles, no Beatles, no Beatles, until he says this great story about we were in Abbey Road recording, and George Martin's behind the glass. He says, "Okay, guys, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. Someone's making a noise." They all look round. You Ringo? No. George? No. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Stop. George Martin's. Someone is making a noise. It's rustling. And he said they all looked round. And then, as Paul said, I looked up, and in the eaves of Abbey Road were 4 Japanese tourists taking pictures. And of course, he mentioned the Beatles. So I was in. Yeah. And then we spoke about the Beatles. All he wanted to do was speak about the Beatles. It was sadly the record company who were more interested in flogging Give My Regards to Broad Street. Yeah. So he loved it. So
was it one of them interviews that you never wanted to end?
Yeah, it was like being me and Paul down the pub.
Yeah, because I like, you've interviewed loads of legends. I've interviewed one. I did an interview with Andy Fraser from Free.
Yep.
And it was before he died, obviously. And it was supposed to be a 30-minute interview. Right, it lasted the whole 3 hours of the show, and I missed the news twice.
There you go. But if it's that, if people like that have got so many good stories,
just phenomenal, yeah. But
great stories. I mean, we had Brian May and Roger Taylor in from Queen when I was doing the Capital Gold Breakfast show, and they came into it to talk about something a new album, Greatest Hits, whatever, and they're PR person in the corner. And I've interviewed many times before, and we're standing there, and Brian then says, "Well, of course, when the musical starts," and the girl went. I've said it now. So I said, go on, then what then? He said, well, we're going to have a musical called We Will Rock You, which is Ben Elton's going to write, and it made the front page of the Standard. And it was things like that which are really kind of great.
Yeah, because people forget, I guess, that these stars are real people.
Of course they are.
And some of these moments that you share with them, like a release of an album or it's a sort of combination of years and hours of work.
Roger Taylor, his son, went to Charterhouse School, and my son Josh was playing Charterhouse School at rugby, and we were both there. And I remember looking across thinking, there's Roger Taylor over there. And anyway, that was it. When we met up, he said, we were at Charterhouse the other week. I said, yeah. He said, I thought it was you. He said, I was looking for you to have a cup of tea afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's, at the end of the day, it's just fun, isn't it?
Just a cup of tea with Roger Taylor.
Cup of tea.
Cup of tea with Roger Taylor.
Tea with Queen.
And I don't know if you're prepared to dish the dirt, but is there a least favourite out there?
I'd say least favourite. The David Bowie interview might be a good one. We had the record company again ringing up saying, would you like David Bowie to come into the lunchtime show I was doing? And Richard Parker, Mick, what do you think? I said, well, of course he is. But they said the only thing is it's not David Bowie. It's his band called Tin Machine. It's David Bowie with I think the guys from Crowded House, the Finn Brothers, whatever it was. So don't know David Bowie while he's in. Before and after, play David Bowie, which we did. So in they come and don't know David Bowie. No talk about Ziggy Stardust, anything. So, hey, let's welcome Tim Machine. There's Fred, Harry, Dave, and Bob. And so let's start. So we played the track, and so I said, Dave, because you call him Dave. Dave, tell us about the album then. And he went, well, it's kind of round, black, it's got a hole in the middle. And they all laughed. I'm thinking, oh, no. I said, yeah, all right. Anyway, so I played another song, and then the same thing happened. And at the end of that song, I just said, OK, guys, thanks very much. That's Tim Machine. Thanks for coming in. Boom, put another song on. They stood there. What's going on? And I said to Dave, if I'm allowed to use the word, I said, Dave, can you please fuck off out of my studio? I said, because I'm a big fan, and I know you are, but no one's going to make me look an idiot on my own show. Yeah. And they walked out, and the record guy had a right face on him. And within half an hour, Richard Park comes in, and he said, Mick, I've just had the MD of whatever records come in to apologise. He said that was they were totally unprofessional. Yeah. And that was it.
I mean, even if you'd done nothing else in your career, just telling David Bowie to fuck off would be pretty impressive, wouldn't it?
It'd be up there.
I tell you what, we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about the sport, because you did the first Sunday morning sports show on Sky, didn't you?
Yeah, that was Sunday Sport, 7 till 9, all live. And the other great thing that we did, it is worth talking about, because it is, I think it was a bit of a game changer. It was the World Cup in Italy, Italian 90, possibly one of the great World Cups of all time.
It's the first real, I remember 86 vaguely.
Yeah, Lineker's hat-trick.
90 I really remember.
And so this Capital Goal were really flying at the time. They had the most wonderful lineup of ex-players on there as well. But Jonathan Pearce. And so the England New Order song was out, right? World in Motion. Yep. And I suddenly thought, I was listening to the England's game the night before, and it was like, Lineker, oh, the man, Lineker's got. So I rang up Darren, the producer. I said, Darren, can you do me a favour? Can you give me a snippet of Jonathan doing the goal? What do you want it for? I said, I want to play it over the song. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, over the England New Order, when it goes, boom, boom, some of the crowd are on it is now. I want to play Jonathan. Oh, all right then. And we did that, and it was like, what is this? And I said, from now on, give me every goal from the World Cup. And so every show we played the England New Order song, we had Jonathan's commentary. And down the line on a podcast that Jonathan did talking about that World Cup, he said it was because of what we did that he got the job on BBC TV commentary. Really? Because they heard that back in the day, and they loved the kind of rock and roll style. And Jonathan went on to be, for me, one of the great commentators of all time.
Did you ever have a go at commentating yourself?
I did. One night I was asked to do, back in the day they used to do a wonderful thing at the old Empire Pool Wembley called the London Five-a-Sides. All the 16 professional teams had a five-a-side team, okay? Yeah. Well, proper matches. And it was sponsored by the Metropolitan Police, and they sponsored something on Capital. And so they asked me and Alan Freeman, if you please, to go to Wembley, so me to kind of MC it, and Alan to kind of go, all right, what a great game that was, all right. And so I commentated, and they said, well, obviously, when Millwall are on, don't go over the top. Just you are there as the commentator. I said, look, listen, mate, I know what I'm doing. And so we've had the first game. It's Arsenal 2, Chelsea 1. What a great game. Next up, it's Millwall Charlton. On they come, and the Millwall attacking. Go on, shoot! Oh, he scored! What a goal, Fluff! What a goal that was! And that bloke's going, you're supposed to be commentating, mate, not talking to your mate. So my great foray into commentating ended that night.
Yeah, I don't know if it'd work for me. I'm a comedian, so occasionally I MC a gig, and we fall over names all the time. I think being a commentator, they're better men than I am.
No, they as I say, I'd be just become a football fan, which I did that night and started shouting.
Yeah. And the final question that I ask all my guests is, it's just a bit of fun that we have, is what's your favourite sandwich?
My favourite sandwich, I've got to say, I do love bacon, sausage and egg with some onion.
Oh, what, raw onion or cooked?
Oh, no, raw.
Raw
onion, yeah.
Bit of sauce?
Yeah, tomato ketchup.
Oh, mate.
Nice. And also, there's nothing quite like the smell of a hot dog when you go football.
Oh, you see, I'm a northerner, so I'm a Bovril man. I don't know if you get. Do you get Bovril at Chelsea?
Yeah, back in the old days at Millwall, we used to around the back of the old stand before we moved to the new den. Half time, you used to go and get a cup of tea, and they used to have the big urn, and they used to give you there's the hot water coming out, and they give you a cup, and one was say coffee, and one was Bovril, and many a time you'd drink and think, what is this? It was most likely a mix of Bovril and coffee, you know. So, but those were the days.
Well, it's not as nice, not as an unpleasant a place to go these days, Millwall, is it?
No, and everyone says, "Oh, it's nothing. It would sooner be back at the old ground." Well, I don't think you would. It's lovely now. You can go. It's a lovely ground. The old Den was fantastic.
Right.
I went and saw my first game, you know, on the year that Millwall broke the record for unbeaten home games, 59 games at home unbeaten. They got beat by Plymouth in '67 or something it was. And I remember I was there, and there's all those great memories that you can't, you know, lose.
Well,
but the new ground's nice.
I'd like to say, as a Notts County fan and someone that's visited the old Den on a Tuesday night in November, no, I'm done. I'm all right. Not again. Not again. Mick Brown, thank you very much for having a chat with me. That was brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
Cheers. Thank you for choosing my podcast from the plethora of podcasts available. Oh, yeah, if you want to find out more or hire me or, just say hello, you can find me on all social medias at Comic Colin78. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all the others. Comic Colin78. That's Comic Colin78.
The Colin in Conversation podcast was presented by Colin Etches and edited and produced by Neil Long at neillong.com.